What are the best and worst matchups in fantasy football week 15 for your quarterbacks and running backs? It's time to break down the rankings and the starts to advice here as we begin another matchup Wednesday, only on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. Check it out there. We have the start-sit column that I put out. It's a combination of rankings and recommendations there, guys that you should think about playing, guys you should think about sitting if you have better alternatives, and we break that down in detail for you on Matchup Wednesday and Matchup Thursday. We tackle the quarterbacks and running backs here on today's show. Then we'll come back with wide receivers, tight ends, and streaming defenses as we always do on Thursday. We're going to be here all throughout the regular season into the playoffs as we focus in on a fantasy football championship and seasonal leagues and also look at DFS. We've got you covered there on Lineup Friday as we give you advice for DFS, price picks of the week, FanDuel, DraftKings. We've got you covered there. So complete look. We're going to keep with it here throughout the fantasy football playoffs. Don't worry. We're going to bring it to throughout the holidays. So I hope you can unwrap a championship here. That's what we're going to try to help you do if you've got some lineup questions here for your fantasy football team. All right, we'll dive right into it in a moment. The first, I got to tell you, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available to you on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, we're going to start this show here looking at our quarterbacks that we like, that we're ranking, that we're going to play no matter what this week. Really, we shouldn't have any better options in our leagues here and why we like them in particular spots. Let's start at Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, and he's going to Chicago actually this week. But Jalen Hurts gets it done. It doesn't matter if it's running. Doesn't matter if it's passing. They just adjust to the matchup. Well, the great thing about this Bears matchup, it is good for both. There's no pick your poison here for Philadelphia. We saw against the Titans, they had to throw the ball, and they did that. Last week, it was all about running the ball against the Giants. They did that. Guess what? They can do both here at will against this Bears defense. And the Bears, by the numbers, haven't been bad in the secondary, but pass rush is depleted. They're not good against the run. They're pretty weak inside. So everything lines up for Hurts to have a monster all-around game here. The only downside could be that I don't think the Bears are going to be all that competitive. You'll get a little bit of Justin Fields, and he's definitely someone we're going to look at this week. But when we're looking at Jalen Hurts, I think, again, this is an all-around smash spot. There's every avenue for him to keep producing QB1 top-of-the-board numbers here. I also like Patrick Mahomes. He did it last week. It was a bit of a grind. It wasn't pretty out there. He's struggling maybe to connect with the wide receivers he wants, but got the job done last week. Had the interceptions we want to clean up. The Texans' pass defense can be pretty tough. We saw that last week. They play a cover two zone. But this is Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be upset about that performance in Denver. The Texans can be vulnerable against the run, and that's going to help the Chiefs, but that's going to open up things downfield as well. The cover two also screams well for Travis Kelce working underneath there. We saw Dalton Schultz have that success here. Juju Smith-Schuster also going to line up here in the slot and take advantage of that. So it's really nice here for Patrick Mahomes. He's number 2 for sure this week. I like Justin Herbert. He didn't get that second touchdown last week. It would have been a fine day against the Dolphins if he had done that. They've kind of stalled in the red zone a few times. That's been a little bit of a problem with the Chargers here finishing drives, but Herbert's going to throw a ton against the Titans. You really can't run with the Titans. The Chargers don't seem to be interested in being a great running team anyway with their offensive line issues. So Justin Herbert's going to sit back and fling it. The Titans have really struggled the past several weeks. They've faced some decent offenses there, the Bengals and Eagles, but also got torched by the Jaguars last week. So it's great news here for Justin Herbert. Contained environment in Los Angeles to rip it there on the Titans. I think he's going to throw another 50 times, and that's usually going to be in big numbers against Tennessee. And even if they lose the game, negative game script with Derrick Henry, that's going to be great for Herbert as well. Joe Burrow, Tampa's defense not that scary anymore, folks. I mean, very exploitable. If they give up 3 touchdowns to Brock Purdy last week, 1 on the ground, 2 through the air. Didn't give up 200 yards passing, but they ran all over them. But the Bengals here, I know they might be down T. Higgins with a hamstring and Tyler Boyd with a finger, but again, they found other guys, Jamar Chase and Trent Irwin. He'll spread the ball around here. They didn't have Hayden Hurst last week, so we'll see if he can return. But overall, Joe Burrow, again, you can't really bury him too far in the rankings here. So he's number 4 this week. Josh Allen, he's dropped off badly. He doesn't have 30 touchdown passes yet, which is a shocker. He has really kind of saved the season by his running, for sure. But running is a big element, and that's why we picked him, because, again, his rushing is a high floor situation, and he tends to get touchdowns there to make up for what he's not doing in the air. But it's been a grind passing. We're not looking at Stephon Diggs. So I still don't drop him any lower than a 5 against the Dolphins. They'll blitz him a little bit. He can run against that and spread the ball around. So I do like Josh Allen this week at number 5, but definitely some quarterbacks I like better. And Rain Dakota Prescott, also known as Dak for the Cowboys. I figure it's going to be a pretty even crowd there in Jacksonville with Dallas fans. So comfortable environment, good weather. And the Jaguars can put up some points here, maybe to make it interesting, but Prescott's going to have to put it up a little bit. I don't think they can just run over and win this game. So that's going to help. I mean, his game was okay last week. He just had the turnovers against the Texans. But overall, Dak is kind of working some things out. He's not running. He's a little bit tentative with his passing, but the numbers can still be there. So he's a no-brainer start here at number 6 this week based on the matchup and the weapons. Really, the Jaguars' pass defense really in a bad state right now. All right. There's a look there at the quarterback rankings. We'll get into the quarterback starts and sits there. These are the tougher decisions there at that position. We'll do that in our next segment here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Before we do that, it's an important time of the year to get your right team in place. If you're a small business, you want to make sure that you've got the tools and people that you need to have success. And LinkedIn Jobs is there for you for sure. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's great. It's a tight window here, I know, before the end of the year, but LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find that right hire if you're looking for one, so you can feel confident in the new year that you got the right person. It's very easy to create a new job post. It's free, and it's very quickly to do here at LinkedIn Jobs. And add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in developing and delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson Audible. That's right, Russell Wilson. It's been a tough season, but he's a champion on and off the field. But off it, we rarely know the grind and the path that goes to greatness. Here, 2-time Super Bowl champion and MVP Von Miller delivers sharp insights about performing at your highest level in moments of extreme pressure. Or NCAA champion Tim Tebow and the Heisman winner and the Broncos sensation discuss how to find your unique personal mission in the world. Each episode features interviews with Olympic medalists, NFL stars, and business leaders. Hosts will swap stories and share proven mental techniques that have gotten the world's most elite performers across the finish line and beyond, featuring Russell Wilson. Available for free on Audible, wherever you get your podcast. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcast. Available anywhere now. Audible, get in the game. All right, we'll continue breaking down the quarterbacks here. Start sit advice there at Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For a second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's pivot to our quarterback starts and sits here. Justin Fields, if you're questioning him, don't. I mean, he's going to run. There's going to have some garbage time there. So I like Justin Fields quite a bit. So he comes in at number 7 for me. You know, the running is just too hard to ignore. Jalen Hurts on the other side. Things might break down. Things might open up with the defense the Eagles play in the second half. So no matter what it is, Justin Fields is going to compile a nice day here with his running and passing, however you look at it in this game, even though the matchup in the air is a little bit tough. Kirk Cousins is going to keep it going. He's at home. The Colts defense could come unraveling here. I think the Colts offense could also present some of the challenge. So Kirk Cousins stays hot here against the Colts. I do like Mike White. They say he's going to be good to go. Scary issue with the ribs and being hospitalized after the game against the Bills, but much easier matchup. And he's back at home against the Lions. So that lines up really well this week. Garrett Wilson and his weapons can key him to a nice day. Tom Brady, look, we looked for the 215-2 last week. Didn't quite happen. I think we get it this week. He's going to have to throw quite a bit against the Bengals. The Bengals, you can't run on all that well with DJ Reader back, but you can't throw on them without Chidobe Awuzie, so there'll be some garbage numbers there. Aaron Rodgers, though, I love this week. I think he's going to be motivated. I think things might line up here for the Packers to stay alive in the playoff race, and as long as they're alive in the playoff race, Rodgers is going to be motivated to play well. It's also prime time, Monday Night Football in Lambeau Field. He's not going to disappoint there at all. I mean, keep in mind, he loves playing in prime time. This is a spot. He's going to smash the Rams here, and that matchup concern away from Jalen Ramsey and maybe Aaron Donald misses another week. We'll see how that plays out, but it looks really good here for Rodgers at home. Derek Carr, I do like him to put up numbers. The Patriots, I think, are going to try to take away Josh Jacobs in the running game, so he's going to have to put it up. We'll see. Darren Waller could return this week. We'll see about that. But Devontae Adams and the other weapons, Derek Carr, again, probably a 215-2 type of situation, not a high ceiling, but a decent floor this week. Ryan Tannehill could have a really high ceiling because the Chargers should have success throwing on the Titans with Herbert. So resistance says Tannehill's going to have to throw quite a bit, much like last week against Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. So the weapons are there. Maybe we'll get Treylon Burks back this week, but Chig Okonkwo has been big at tight end. They got Robert Woods, Westbrook-Akine, some sneaky playmakers that can make it happen here for the Titans. And again, opposite Herbert, Ryan should be busy. Speaking of Ryan Tannehill, let's go to Matt Ryan. And again, he can chuck it. The Vikings are vulnerable. I think you'll see a lot of Jonathan Taylor, but it'll also open things up for Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce against a weak secondary if there's a negative game script. And then you look at Mac Jones, man. On the other side of things, it's been a struggle for Mac Jones to put up numbers, but again, it's a good match for Hunter Henry and the wide receivers this week. So looking at the backfield situation, Damon Harris, I'm not sure he's going to return to the thigh, or Ramondre Stevenson battling an ankle injury. So maybe putting up a little bit in the air to stick it to Josh McDaniels and the Raiders this week could also be a negative game script. So everything lines up for Mac Jones to take advantage of that option. And deeper situation, Andy Dalton, good coverage matchup against the Falcons. He's got Chris Olave and the other weapons there. I think they can light up the Falcons at home. So I do really like the Saints passing in this week. So if you're desperate quarterback, Andy Dalton is a really good play this week. I think just a sleeper to get decent floor numbers, but also potential ceiling if the Falcons do some damage on the other side against the Saints defense. All right, so those are the quarterbacks I like. There's some notable quarterbacks I don't like. Tua Tagovailoa is one of them for sure. Man, it's not great out there for Tua. I mean, it's a rough place for sure. I mean, he didn't play well last week. You look at the Bills matchup at Buffalo, the weather could be there. I'm not feeling it at all with Tua. I think the Bills defense played a little bit better. So not going with Tua at all this week. Now, Jared Goff, not going to do it. He's a different quarterback on the road in the elements against a good defense than he is at home against bad defense. It seems like it's lined up that way, hasn't it? He's faced all the kind of the weak defenses like the Commanders and Seahawks and Jaguars and Vikings. It seems like they've all come to Detroit, but then when he's played rough defenses, see New England, see Buffalo, he's got the Jets this week, absolutely not. So the numbers just are not good here for Jared Goff outdoors. He just isn't a good quarterback. He's a California guy, indoor guy, doesn't play well for him there. So Tyrell and Goff, two guys that are usually starters, we're not going with this week. Geno Smith, same thing. San Francisco going to avoid all quarterbacks there. We tried with Tom Brady. It was a failure. We're not going to trust Geno Smith in that matchup there. Could get ugly. Trevor Lawrence, we're not going to chase the points from last week. Cowboys pass defense is pretty tough. We know that. And again, Lawrence will fade a little bit, and we can't totally trust him. We've got to run the ball a little bit on the Cowboys. And the Jaguars limited doing that. Daniel Jones, you can't trust at all anymore against the Commanders. Same thing with Taylor Heineke on the other side. Deshaun Watson, absolutely not. The Ravens secondary is tough. That's a very low point total this week. So the Browns are going to have to win this game grinding it, low scoring, as the Ravens have an uncertain quarterback situation that could also limit the volume here for Watson as they try to get Nick Chubb going. Brock Purdy, I think the volume is going to be pretty low for him. The Seahawks are getting gashed against the run. I think it'll be a lot of Christian McCaffrey on Thursday night there in Seattle, and a lot of Jordan Mason actually as well to rest McCaffrey. So I don't see Purdy putting up a lot of numbers. There's no Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk has a tough matchup on the outside, so I can't go with Purdy this week. Desmond Ridder, he's exciting because he can run. He maybe gives this offense a little bit more upside, better connection with Drake London, but I'm going to wait and see with him. I don't want to force him in against the Saints. And Baker Mayfield there. It's a nice story, but I think it's going to come down to earth against the Packers. And not that you were going to look at them, but two QB League super flexes. You might have thought of Baker Mayfield. I think you can think twice about that decision this week, even though by the numbers, Green Bay seems like a decent matchup. All right, there you have it. There's our look at our quarterbacks there with the start sits. Now let's go through our running back rankings here in this segment, and then we'll get into our running back start sits in our final segment. Christian McCaffrey, no-brainer. We talked about his role against the Buccaneers last week. It'll stay pretty high here. They're going to be careful. It is a short week. They don't want to get him hurt. Jordan Mason should cut in there, but the McCaffrey show should be there in Seattle. Derrick Henry, the Chargers' run defense is weak. They pounded away at the Jaguars. They lost, even with Derrick Henry going off, so I like him. Jonathan Taylor, I think he's going to destroy the Vikings coming back, so that could create good passing opportunities on the other side for the Vikings, and as well as Matt Ryan. So Jonathan Taylor's number 3. Austin Eckler comes in for receiving skills all alone. I mean, I don't even look at his rushing. I just look at, is he going to catch a lot of balls, and is he going to score? And that usually is the case every week. And against the Titans, you can throw on them with their running backs, and that's a great matchup actually for Eckler than if it was just a straight-up easy running matchup. Miles Sanders is red hot. He's going to dump on the Bears this week. You look at Tony Pollard, you can't send him against the Jaguars. 2 touchdowns last week, even with limited volume. Ezekiel Elliott, the same game. He's just a scoring machine. You got Joe Mixon. I think they'll run him a little bit more against the Buccaneers. Josh Jacobs, I still can't drop out of the top 10 with the matchup against the Patriots. They'll try to slow him down a little bit, but he's Josh Jacobs. This is what they do. Nick Chubb, I'm going to be conservatively because the Ravens' run defense is tough. I'm going to put him right at the borderline of an RB1. Aaron Jones, love that matchup as well. He's going to be key to Rodgers having a big game. They can't cover Aaron Jones with some of the issues that they're having in linebacker and safety all of a sudden. So Aaron Jones is going to have a big game, I think, against the Rams, and probably going to involve some passes caught from one Aaron Rodgers. Ramondre Stevenson, ankle injury. We'll see. I don't know what you're going to get. If it's Damon Harris, you go with him. If I'm going to pick Pierre Strong or Kevin Harris, I'm going Strong because he looked the best and he has some pass catching ability. But it's frustrating you're going desperate here if you don't have Stevenson or Harris in that game. But if it's Stevenson good to go, he's good to go for your fantasy team. Harris might be the option. Pivot Damian, that is, over Kevin, with Pierre Strong being the more appealing rookie. Saquon Barkley against the Commanders, he just falls out of the RB1 status. He struggled a bit here. He didn't look the same, had limited snaps. They got a blowout last week, also dealing with the neck injury. But looking at Saquon against the Commanders is still there because of the volume. Dalvin Cook, same thing, volume-based touchdown play against the Colts. Run defense has kind of been wilting. James Conner came through against the Patriots for that tough spot. He's going to have to be the lifeblood of this offense here with Colt McCoy in there, and Kyler Murray lost for the season officially with that torn ACL. So they're going to run him quite a bit against the Broncos. Travis Etienne, stick with them. I think they're going to have to use them a little bit more this week, and the Cowboys can be vulnerable against running backs, as we've seen. Alvin Kamara was not only that one huge game against the Raiders, hasn't scored any games, but he loves seeing the Falcons and playing against them, so I love him this week. is a high-end RB2. And Kenneth Walker is still going to play him. He's got 2 full practices with the ankle injury. He should be out there, but just temper expectations. I think it's going to be a rough week here for the San Francisco defense versus Seattle. I don't think you'll get a lot here this week. So good stuff all around here that we look at in our running back ranking. So that almost gets us all the way through our RB2s there if you're trying to make those decisions. There are some players on the borderline that we need to break down for you. We'll do that in the final segment here, Locked On Fantasy Football on a matchup Wednesday. We'll look at the running back starts and sits. Before we do that, our betting partner here at Locked On Fantasy Football is BetOnline. And BetOnline, it's an exciting time of the year. You got the World Cup here. You got France and Morocco. We already had Argentina defeat Croatia. So we're going to have the last semifinal and the World Cup final there between the France-Morocco winner and Argentina and Leo Messi. So exciting stuff there. Actually, you can get on there. You also have college football bowl games about to start, as well as a lot of NBA and NHL action, as well as the NFL. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season, to basketball, and of course the World Cup. They've got it all covered at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let us finish the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We've got some guys we have to think about. Zonovan Knight, we love him this week. The Lions' run defense has actually gotten a little bit better. We saw what they did with Etienne last week, but part of that is that the Jaguars can't run as well. The Jets want to involve Knight. Of course, the pass catching is a big involvement here, what Knight does. So, Knight I like against the Lions this week. I actually like the Jets to win this game. And so the game script will also go in their favor, according to me. J.K. Dobbins, he's going to keep it going. I mean, he looked pretty good coming back from the knee injuries again. I wouldn't totally trust him, but him and Gus Edwards are definitely some playable assets here this week. But, again, I would feel a lot better about Dobbins this week. Edwards, if you're desperate, I wouldn't recommend him if we see that Dobbins is okay. David Montgomery returns. I know there's a talk about Khalil Herbert returning from his injury. Montgomery coming off the bye. I think he'll be the busy workhorse there against the Eagles. He can run on the Eagles still. Their changes. Isaiah Pacheco, disappointed last week a little bit against the Broncos, but still got the busy workload. Jerick McKinnon, however, had those 2 random touchdowns. So I do like McKinnon. Just be careful. The game script could be very positive this week versus back and forth and even. So that would mean more Pacheco in this game. But McKinnon, they're probably going to use the cog a little bit more after the breakout game last week. Now, Brian Robinson Jr., I liked him a little bit more than Antonio Gibson this week, so I'm going to go in that direction. Antonio Gibson's a little bit more volatile. Brian Robinson, I think they're going to use because power running has been working against the Giants, so be wary of playing Gibson a little bit. He's a little bit more of a stretch this week. Najee Harris here, looking at him, he's going to be busy against the Panthers. They're going to have to run quite a bit with Mitchell Trubisky starting potentially if Kenny Pickett isn't cleared from a concussion. So Najee Harris going to lean on him a lot. That's how you beat the Panthers. Speaking of the Panthers, here I like that combination, Dante Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. That's how you beat the Steelers. You run on them. They're still pretty giving against running backs, as we saw last week against Dobbins and Edwards. Cam Akers, again, keep it going. The Packers, that's their only source of offense. He's going to score for a 3rd straight week. The Packers can be vulnerable against the run. Latavius Murray is going to lead this backfield for the Broncos against the Cardinals with no Mike Boone. Cardinals really looked rough against Strong and Kevin Harris there on Monday night. So it's not looking great here, but Murray will get the volume, and I think he could have the potential for multiple touchdowns. And George Mason, I mentioned him being a player that you can look at. They're going to be careful, workload, short week. Mason looked good. He's their next man up. They're going to power run here with Mason and have the lead possibly. So like that lining up here as the Seahawks have given up almost 35 carries a game for running backs. The latest teams have realized that's how you beat the Seahawks and don't try to trust or throw against them here in those matchups. Now, the sit side, Raheem Mostert, not going to feel it. We'll see about Jeff Wilson Jr., the hip injury, but not going to play either if I can against the Bills this week on the road. Same thing with the Bills do. I don't know what you're going to get from Devin Singletary and James Cook. I would avoid them against the Dolphins. Same thing with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Not going to feel them at all. The Justin Jackson touchdown will really hurt. But these guys are touchdown dependent at this point. They're not getting enough volume. This is a passing offense, and I don't like the Lions offense to be on the field a whole bunch here with Jared Goff struggling. Rashad White, Leonard Fournette, another rough game. You can squeeze out some decent desperation flex points out of him now, splitting his backfield. The Bengals have been pretty good against the run. A.J. Dillon, Kareem Hunt, I know they're not on the same teams, but those are similar back situations. I don't trust either there to get enough touches to be productive. Packers versus the Rams, and Hunt's Browns, I should say, versus the Ravens. I'm not going in that direction here this week with those complementary backs. I'm not also trusting Rex Burkhead or Dario Ogunbowale against the Chiefs. I get it. It looks good on paper here. You might get some production here, but it could be an uncertain split. You could be disappointed playing either. I'm not going to try to force another Seahawks other than Kevin Walker if Walker doesn't go. And again, Strong, William, or Harris, just desperation. I know what you're going to get. They could pivot and totally put someone else in that matchup or just decide not to run at all against the Raiders. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about this week with that team. So Patriots will see. If Ramondre were good, if Xavier Harris were good, anything else I'm going to be a little bit worried about in that matchup this week. So there you have it. There's a breakdown of the running backs as well as the quarterbacks on today's show. That's what we do on Matchup Wednesday. We break down those positions, look at who's got a good spot to play, who you want to think about avoiding this week. We'll do that again with wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses on Thursday. So Matchup Thursday. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck in all your remaining waiver claims, and we'll get back at you tomorrow looking at how you want to think about your wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses for Week 15.